With the conclusion of the British Grand Prix, we're now comfortably at the halfway point of what has turned out to be an exciting season. How do each of the teams stack up, and who is winning the intra-team battles across the grid? Let's find out. Red Bull's early dominance seems to be fading fast. If it weren't for the brilliance of Max Verstappen, Red Bull would likely be struggling to hold on to the top spot in both championships. In qualifying, it's 12-0 to Verstappen. This is perhaps to be expected. Qualifying has never been Sergio's strongest area, with him generally being far better in the race. Nevertheless, when it comes to the races that both drivers have reached the checkered flag, Max has been ahead on every occasion. Despite this, Perez had a strong start to the season, finishing on the podium in 4 out of the first 5 races, with 3 being a 1-2 for Red Bull. However, from Miami onward, coincidentally where Perez's downturn in form began last season, his results have been less than exemplary. With a best result of 4th, 2 DNFs, and bringing home a mere 26 points in 7 races, the British Grand Prix being the nadir of his season so far, and finishing 2 laps down on the leaders thanks to a botched strategy in the changing conditions. This massive downturn in form has led to speculation on Perez's future with the team, despite being handed a new 2-year contract in June. Said new contract likely has a performance clause of some description, with rumours circulating that he has until the summer break in 2 races to up his form or be replaced. As the season has progressed, McLaren have found themselves with a car that appears to have the most well-rounded and versatile package on the grid. Both Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri are performing at a high level, with McLaren collecting more points than any other team over the last 6 races. The opening races saw McLaren comfortably in the top 3 teams, with both drivers regularly finding themselves in the top 5. Lando scored podiums in Australia and China, and took his maiden win in Miami thanks in part to some good luck from a safety car. This marked a noticeable shift in attitude from the team, and Norris in particular. Rather than focusing on getting the most out of a given weekend, McLaren were there to win it. In qualifying, Lando has been ahead the majority of the season, with Oscar only being on top for the race on Sunday on 1 occasion. The gap between the drivers has been relatively small, however, with them lining up next to each other on the grid on several occasions. Things have been slightly closer on Sundays, with Norris coming out as the driver on top in 8 of the 12 races so far. The gulf to Max and Red Bull in both championships is still relatively large, despite McLaren's good form. Errors in strategy, incidents, and mistakes from both drivers have cost the team valuable points on more than 1 occasion, and almost certainly wins in Silverstone and Austria. At the start of 2024, it looked as though Mercedes were in for another painful season. Their star driver, 7-time world champion Lewis Hamilton, had decided to leave the team in a shock move to Ferrari in 2025 before even getting into the car. Despite this, Mercedes started relatively strong, with George Russell lining up in P3 on the grid for the first race of the season in Bahrain and taking 5th place in the race. Results similar to this have persisted throughout the first half of the season. Mercedes seem to have finally grasped the issues that have plagued them during the ground effect era of F1, and they have developed a car that is quickly turning into a front-runner once again. This was highlighted most at Silverstone, where the recent British Grand Prix took place. George Russell took his 2nd pole of the season, with the first being in Canada a few races prior. Lewis lined up in 2nd place, making it the first Mercedes front-row lockout for quite some time. Ultimately, Hamilton took the win, his first since 2021, after Russell was forced to retire from the race early on due to an issue with the car. The British Grand Prix was the 2nd win in a row for the Silver Arrows, thanks to George snatching the win from Verstappen and Lando after their collision in Austria a week earlier. Russell has been comfortably beating Hamilton when it comes to qualifying, starting the race ahead of Lewis 10 times out of the 12. George seemed to generally have the better of Lewis on a Sunday too. Though, looking at their points, it's difficult to see where, as they're only 1 point apart at the midpoint of the season. Ferrari looked to be in a good place at the start of the season. Strong performances from both Sainz and Leclerc had them looking like the second best team after Red Bull. Third and fourth in Bahrain, and Sainz taking victory in Australia for a Ferrari 1-2, an even more impressive feat when you consider Sainz had surgery only a few weeks prior. Got the season off to a flying start. Monaco has perhaps been the highlight of the season so far for the Scuderia. Charles Leclerc, the home hero, finally taking pole position and winning the race on his 7th attempt in Formula 1. The races since Monaco have been less than amazing for Leclerc, with a run of poor results, car issues, and bungled strategies. In qualifying, the battle was generally fallen to Leclerc, with a 7-4 swing in his favour, with the Saudi GP in Jeddah being contested by Oliver Behrman due to Sainz's illness. This also went to Leclerc, with Behrman putting in a stunning drive to 7th place in the race, and helping to secure his position on the grid next year. Across the races that both have competed in and subsequently finished, the battle has gone down to the wire, with 5 apiece. Both drivers have been plagued with reliability issues and botched strategy calls, Canada especially being a low point for Ferrari this season with a double DNF. Strong results throughout the season from one or both of the drivers have propelled Ferrari into second place in the Constructors' Championship, a place that they still cling to by 7 points, despite McLaren's recent form. Early heroes of the 2023 season thanks to a string of podiums from Fernando Alonso, Aston Martin's form began to dip later in that year. In 2024, that dip in form unfortunately seems to have continued, with underwhelming results from the Silverstone-based team so far. Point-scoring finishes for the team have been sporadic so far in 2024, and when they do happen, it's typically at the bottom end of the top 10. Alonso rarely looks like he's able to challenge for a podium this year. On a somewhat positive note, Lance Stroll has managed to be much closer to Alonso so far this season, even managing to out-qualify the 2-time world champion on 5 occasions so far. A massive improvement already, as 2023 saw Alonso beat Stroll in 19 out of the 22 qualifying sessions. This uptick in performance from the Canadian has even managed to translate the race on occasion, with Lance being able to finish ahead of the Spaniard on track from time to time. Aston Martin has been investing heavily in infrastructure and personnel, recently poaching Enrico Dile from Ferrari, and is known to be openly courting Adrian Newey, hoping to acquire the highly regarded designer's services for what is rumoured to be an eye-wateringly large fee. Currently sitting in 5th in the Constructors' Championship, Aston Martin will be hoping for an increase in performance soon before they start to fall further down the grid. If you're enjoying the video, please consider giving it a like and hitting the subscribe button to see more F1 content just like this. The Red Bull Junior Team season has been one of ups and downs so far. Tsunoda took some valuable points early on for the team, while Ricciardo floundered. So much so that the security of his seat began to be questioned, in a similar way to how Nick de Vries was given the boot mid-season last year. There was so much speculation about whether Ricciardo would make it to the summer break. From Miami onwards, however, things seem to have been flipped. Ricciardo's performances have improved, with 3-point scoring finishes, including a stunning 4th place finish in the Miami sprint race. Conversely, Yuki has started to struggle in recent races, with a string of poor performances and finishes out of the points. An upgrade introduced at the Spanish Grand Prix not working as intended, seemingly being the source of his frustration. That said, he has maintained his advantage in qualifying, with a 9-3 advantage over Ricciardo. In the race, things are more even, though Tsunoda continues to maintain the edge over his teammate. Tsunoda was granted another 1-year contract in June, guaranteeing his place in the 2025 grid. Ricciardo's position within the team still seems to be undecided. One of the standout rookies of last season, Liam Lawson, has been promised a race seat by Red Bull for 2025. Where this will be, though, remains to be seen. 2024 has continued to be another rebuilding season for Williams. Team principal James Vowles has stated that with the 2024 car, they intended to iron out some of the weaknesses of previous year's cars to have a more stable platform to build upon. This seems to have been broadly achieved, with both Alex Albon and Logan Sargent praising the car for being far more predictable and drivable than the previous years. However, in doing so, Williams has put an end to one of their car's previous strengths: incredible top speed on low drag circuits. In doing so, their season has yielded fewer points than the previous year, and the car doesn't look like it's going to be able to break into the top 10 all that often. Albon continues to stand out at Williams, scoring all 4 of the team's points so far and outqualifying Sargent at every race so far this year. Despite a generally improved performance compared to last year, the writing does appear to be on the wall for Sargent's time in Formula 1. Vowles has repeatedly shown that he has no confidence in the young American, despite what he may say to the cameras. Most notably, in Australia, when, after crashing, Albon was given Logan's car for the remainder of the weekend, forcing him to sit the race out due to a lack of spare parts. Various drivers have been linked with his seat at Williams for the future. Kimi Antonelli, the F2 driver and Mercedes protege, has been linked with the seat on and off all season. And exiting Ferrari driver Carlos Sainz has also been openly coveted by Vowles. As of the British Grand Prix, however, no one has been announced. At the start of 2024, Haas expected to be at the back of the grid. Thanks to a strong series of upgrades and brilliant drives from Nico Hulkenberg, they currently sit 7th in the standings with 27 points, 3 times more than their nearest rival, Alpine, and only 4 behind RB. Nico has generally been ahead in qualifying, and in the races has been the top Haas driver on all but one occasion, with standout performances in Austria and Silverstone, finishing 6th in both. Austria saw both drivers finishing in the points for the first time since the Australian Grand Prix months earlier. Should both drivers continue to be operating at a high level, then Haas looks to be in a good position to take 6th in the Constructors, having not finished above 8th position since 2018, when they took 5th overall. Early in the season, Hulkenberg announced that for 2025 he would be moving to Sauber, ahead of their change into the Audi Works team in 2026. Since then, Haas has signed Ferrari junior driver Oliver Behrmann as his replacement for 2025 on a multi-year deal, following his excellent performance in Jeddah earlier in the year. The future of Kevin Magnussen is uncertain. His contract expires at the end of the season, and no decision has been made public. Team principal Ayao Komatsu recently stated that they weren't interested in having 2 rookies in the team for 2025 and that someone with experience is preferred. So there's hope for Magnussen to remain in the team yet. At the beginning of the year, it looked like Alpine was going to be in for a disaster of a season. A slow, overweight car and 2 drivers that, despite the team's best efforts, continued to be at each other's throats whenever they were on the track together. It took until the 6th race of the season in Miami to score their first point. A few races later in Monaco, it looked like Alpine were finally about to get some good luck and score some decent points. Gasly and Ocon lined up next to each other on the grid, right on the edge of the points in 10th and 11th. It didn't take long for things to go wrong. On the first lap of the race at Portia, the right-hander before the tunnel, Ocon went for an opportunistic overtake on Gasly, ending his race and nearly taking Pierre with him. Team principal Bruno Famin was incensed. It was announced shortly after that Ocon would not be continuing with the team in 2025. Despite this, Ocon has generally been the quicker driver of the two over the season so far, out-qualifying Gasly 8 times to 4 and finishing ahead 6 times to Gasly's 5. That being said, Pierre has scored double the points, 6 to Esteban's 3. It's currently unknown who will replace Ocon at Alpine next year. Carlos Sainz is known to have been approached, with the potential of dropping its own engine in favour of a Mercedes supply on the cards for the future was used to catch his attention. Jack Doohan, the current test and reserve driver for the team, is also thought to be a possibility for the seat. Lastly, we come to Sauber. It has been a difficult season for the team so far, with no points scored as of yet. The team has been plagued with pit stop issues the entire season, which has resulted in many races being ruined for both drivers. Joe has struggled in 2024, only managing to out-qualify Bottas on one occasion. Though in the races it's far closer, with a 7-5 split to Valtteri. Neither driver has been confirmed as staying with the team for 2025. We do know that at least one, if not both of them, will be leaving the team. However, due to the re-signing of Nico Hulkenberg, who last drove for the team in 2013, it's unsure who will fill the other seat next year. But like many other teams, Carlos Sainz is high on the list of priorities, with a huge contract offered to him. The 2024 season has surpassed all expectations so far. The predicted Red Bull dominance, while there, hasn't been quite as overwhelming as many expected. All 4 top teams have at least one win so far, with 6 different winners out of the 12 races. What have you made of the season so far? Has any driver stood out against their teammates yet? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe to see more videos like this. Thank you for watching.